What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And today, we're going to look at the NHL standings as of the morning of April 19th, 2021. And of course, we are going to look at the NHL divisions. As we do this, we're going to start with the Central, go to the North, then the East, followed by the West. Without further ado, let's jump right in and start with the Central. So Carolina, I'm not going to discuss each team's individual records. We're just going to go to the points. So Carolina is in first place with 62 points. Florida right behind them with 61. Tampa Bay right behind them at 60. Then you get a drop off in the Central where Nashville has 49, Chicago has 47, Dallas has 46, Columbus has 39, and Detroit has 38 in the basement. So Carolina leads this division right now. And there's going to be a lot of haters who are going to say, well, Carolina's only doing so good because Florida and Tampa Bay are dealing with injuries. Carolina's been dealing with some injuries as well. Of course, Teuvo Teravainen really hasn't played well, period, even when he's been healthy, but he's been out for a while at this point. So it's not like Carolina is completely healthy. They have been dealing with the injuries as well. It's just they have more depth, it seems, or they haven't had as many injuries as Tampa Bay. But yeah, Carolina currently is in first place. Will it last? We'll see. It's definitely possible that it will last. The goaltending still isn't impressing me by any way, shape, or form, but Carolina is lethal. This is a team that they can really start to play well in the playoffs. If they can get going, if they go on a roll, you're going to be hard-pressed to stop them. It's going to be high-scoring games, that's for sure. Florida sits behind them. Now, Florida isn't exactly a perfect team either. Florida has dealt with some injuries, but the positive thing for the Florida Panthers is they do have a coach who knows what he's doing. Joel Quenneville, of course, does have a few cups to his name, so he can help carry this team. He can help do what he can for this team, but coaching isn't everything. Coaching really helps you. To have a good coach, it really helps. But Florida just needs to figure out how to stay healthy, and hopefully for them, Keith Yandle can step up and fill that role of Aaron Ekblad, who of course got hurt. But it's not the same thing. Yandle is not the same offensive player that Ekblad is, so they need to find some production from the blue line quick in order to stay up here. Tampa Bay has been dealing with a lot of injuries. Now, Stamkos is on the long-term IR. Hopefully he's back. You know, we don't know when. It's hockey, so they say lower body injury. That could mean, you know, he's eligible to come back May 3rd or whatever. He comes back May 3rd. It could mean he's out until mid-June. We have no idea. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. On the plus side, Nikita Kucherov could be back by hopefully the playoff time if you're the Lightning. So we'll have to see how that goes. I'd be more expecting Stamkos to be in the playoffs than Kucherov, but Tampa Bay could use both players. If both come back, they'll be in a good position. But right now, they're waiting on players like Anthony Cirelli to step up big time. He's a great defensive player, but they need him to work on his offense too. Nashville currently holds the 4th spot in the Central, so Nashville isn't wowing anybody either. This is a team that has its flaws, but it does have some positives as well. It's just, at least Matt Duchene's somewhat showing up. He's back. He's not doing great, but he needs to step up more, so I should have said. I do like what Duchene can bring to the table, but I don't know if it's just Nashville or what. He needs to figure out what he's doing. If they want to hold into the playoff spot, if they want to get in the playoffs, they need to. Chicago sits right behind them, and Chicago, I mean, Chicago's a tough team to really talk about. They had like a weird first quarter, then they kind of jumped back towards the playoff spot for the second, halfway through the season. Now they're right on the outside of the playoffs. There's going to be some problems with this team. There's always going to be growing pains with this team. It's a younger team. Of course, losing a lot of your veterans hurts, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to continue their downward spiral, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because then they get a higher draft pick. Still, Dylan Strome needs to figure out what he's doing and quick, otherwise he very well might be left exposed for the expansion draft. Possibly. Now, Dallas currently sits in 6th in this division, and we'll have to see what happens. Now, Tyler Seguin, he's going to return soon, and he needs to contribute for Dallas to make a run. It sucks to say that, but they need Seguin back now, and they need him to produce immediately. He doesn't get a leeway if Dallas wants to make a playoff run. If they want to try to avenge their finals loss last year, they need Seguin to step up the minute he comes back, because the rest of the team just isn't doing it. As you can see, they have lost 12 games, which is the most in the league, in overtime or shootout. So this team plays close hockey. They're just finding themselves on the losing end of a lot of close games, which of course really hurts. But Dallas, you're lucky you get a point for an overtime loss. If this was football, you wouldn't. If this was baseball, you wouldn't. If this was basketball, you wouldn't. So they need to figure out how to start winning these close games and fast. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves on the outside of the playoffs. Columbus, they went through a fire sale at the trade deadline. They traded away most of their good players. They've been in a downward spiral lately. The real question for this team is, can Patrick Laine do anything, or is Laine all but done for the team? He needs to step up. He's a restricted free agent this offseason. If he doesn't, they're going to just let him go. So that's the real thing. Is he going to step up, or is he just going to continue to be bad or inconsistent? Detroit, last place in this division. Is anyone really surprised? Now, Detroit, of course, they just arguably fleeced Washington at the trade deadline. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now they get Jacob Verana, so that's a very solid acquisition for this team. He brings a lot of help to this team. He brings a good veteran. He's a solid player. Of course, they get a top pick for him as well. But we'll have to see how he can do and how Detroit can do. Just don't expect them to make a playoff push this year. They're definitely on the outside looking in. So next we go to the North. And of course, Toronto leads this division with 61 points. Winnipeg behind them with 57. Edmonton with 54. Montreal at 47. Calgary at 41. Vancouver at 37. And Ottawa in last with 34 points. So Toronto is in a good position. They've been playing very well. And this is despite the fact that Frederik Andersen has looked bad, is putting it nice. Now, he's been inconsistent. He's been hurt. He's been doing injuries. So they end up trading for a solid backup. So you have to be a little concerned if you're a Leafs fan about Frederik Andersen's future with the team. Now, they also just got Nick Foligno at the trade deadline. He could help bring some physicality to this team that the team needs. It's a lot of, high-octane goal scorers. That's great and all, but you need some physicality too. It's hockey. So fingers crossed if you're a Maple Leafs fan, they can do it. This has to be their year. Toronto needs to do it this year. There's so much money in this team. There's so much talent on this team. They need to do it. They need to produce, and it's just they need to. They have to. There's no denying it anymore. You don't get a leeway this year. It's now or never. Boom or bust. Now Winnipeg. Oh man, Winnipeg. I used to say I don't know what to say about Winnipeg. There's stuff to say about Winnipeg. They're doing good. They're getting Toronto a run for their money for the lead in the North Division, and that's surprising. Winnipeg's one of those teams that has a lot of good players, but no real standout superstar. Now you can tell me, Pierre-Luc Dubois is their superstar. Not necessarily. He hasn't been doing that great this year. If he can start rolling and the rest of the team continues to play as the way they're playing, this team is a good team that will make a run for the playoffs and can make a run in the playoffs. Good luck to Winnipeg. Next we have Edmonton, and the McDavid Draisaitl show has been getting some help lately, but they still need to produce. Now, Yamamoto has been struggling a bit, so he needs to come back, but he needs to play better. The goaltending needs to continue to play well, and then Edmonton will have a chance to make a run in this division. But for the time being, we've seen it before. McDavid and Draisaitl can only carry this team so far because teams are just going to do whatever they can. They're going to throw bodies. They're going to say, all right, tell you what, we're literally going to have 4 defensive guys out there when those 2 are on the ice. We're fine with taking the hit. And it'll work. It'll work. You got to if you take the hit for the first line, then you have the other 3 lines where you can beat the Oilers. Montreal has been slightly disappointing. They've still been good, but they haven't been as good as you'd hope if you're a Canadiens fan. This team really needs to see Carey Price get better, is the best thing to say. Carey Price has been okay, but they need him to start producing. They need him to get better. They need him to really step up his game in time for the playoffs if they want to make a run. They need him to step up now. We saw it during the postseason bubble last year. They really did well. They upset the Penguins in the first round. They brought the Flyers to 7 games. If Carey Price can step up his game, this Canadiens team can make a run in the playoffs. But right now, they're on the outside looking in. They're in the playoffs, I should say, but their chances on making a run are on the outside. Now, Calgary sits behind them. Calgary's an interesting team as well. Now, their offensive weapons just haven't been doing it. So they're one of the other nitty-gritty teams. You got to play them. They're playing close games. And it's really not good for Calgary. They need to understand what they're doing. And really, they need Sean Monahan to step up. He's just not been cutting it. They need to figure out what's going on with him. So good luck with the Flames. They have a chance to make the playoffs, but they really need Monahan and other players to step up. So now we have the Vancouver Canucks. And the Canucks, of course, missed a couple of weeks. They missed over 3 weeks due to a certain viral illness. Almost a month, actually. And basically, you can't necessarily knock them. They definitely are going to be the bigger threat to the Canadiens making the playoffs. They've missed so many games. They're going to have a lot of games coming up soon. So it's basically make it or break it time for them. They need to produce. If they don't, they're going to lose out. If they do, they have a good chance at making the playoffs. They have a lot of talent on that team, and we'll have to see how they can do with the talent that they have. Hopefully they prove that the month break is enough to give them rest, and they come back healthy, ready to go. Now, last, we have the Ottawa Senators. I mean, it's Ottawa. Do you really want me to say anything more about that? Matt Murray hasn't looked good for them, but on the flip side, some of their younger players on offense are at least looking good. Brady Tkachuk scoring, which I hate to say it, but it works for them. Good luck, Ottawa. Another tough year. Now we go to the East. Washington has 62 points and is in first place. The Islanders sit in second with 60. The Penguins sit in third with 59. Boston sits in fourth with 56. The Rangers have 52. The Flyers have 47. And then New Jersey and Buffalo have 34 and 31 points, respectively. So the Washington Capitals are continuing to be an offensive powerhouse. Their big problem right now is goaltending. Now, I understand we had their star goaltender, of course, Samsonov. He missed some time due to a certain viral illness, and he hasn't looked the same since coming back. He needs to step up his game if Washington wants to have an actual chance on making a run during the playoffs, because the other top teams here in the East will make you pay if you don't have a good goaltender. We've seen it before. If your goaltender is not confident, you're going to pay for it. You will pay for it. Of course, this team is offensively heavy as well, so they can make other teams pay, but you don't want to be playing from behind. We've seen it before. It's never fun. The Islanders have been surprisingly holding on to this 2 spot. Now, they've been hanging around the top for a while, and it really makes you think, how long will the Islanders continue to be up here? Now, they have been somewhat sliding of late, but, I mean, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world if you're an Islanders fan. You might drop to the 3 spot, because Pittsburgh is kind of going in the opposite direction as you, but the Islanders definitely have a chance to make a run. They're just one of those nitty-gritty teams. They will play you physical. They play strong defense. They play strong offense. It's just, we'll have to see how they can do. Islanders definitely have a chance to make a run this year, though. Pittsburgh, like I said, Pittsburgh is surging right now. So, I mean, Jason Zucker, he's been doing good for them. He's been not doing good. I'm thinking he's doing good for a second. Crosby's been doing good. Malkin's been hurt. So, we'll have to see what happens with this team. They need Zucker to step up, but you can only trust in these guys so much. The Penguins, I mean, their goaltending has been stepping it up still of late. So if they start to struggle again, the Penguins are going to be a team that gets knocked out pretty quick, just because they don't have the offensive firepower that they've had in the past, especially with Malkin out. Boston made the big trade, of course, at the trade deadline, trading for Taylor Hall. Now, the goaltending, Tuukka Rask has returned from his injury, so it looks like Boston has a chance to really start to surge. Now, they just traded 6-3 wins with the Capitals over the past weekend, so that's a positive thing if you're Boston. It's not exactly great if you're Washington, but that doesn't matter. And this team is ready to produce. This team has offensive firepower. Taylor Hall looks like he's stepping right into Boston. Maybe he'll start to decline, But he looks happy in Boston. He looks like he's ready to play. So the Bruins, this could be a lethal team. This could be a team that's going to make noise in the playoffs. Now, the Rangers are the first team out in the East, and they've been doing decent of late. Now, they have, just like the other 4 teams up here, a deadly offense. So they're looking at some of their young guys, like, of course, Kakko and Alexei Lafreniere. They need those 2 guys to step up if they want to make a really good chance of making the playoffs and possibly make a run. But with the way things are looking, it's going to be tough for the Rangers. They're going to be one of the best teams to miss the playoffs with the way things are currently looking. So the offense is finally starting to produce. It took them playing the Flyers to figure out how to score again, and that's all they needed. The Rangers are looking good. Watch out if you're a Rangers fan. You guys have a chance to make a run. The Flyers, I mean, I really don't want to talk about the Flyers. They've been such big disappointments this year. They're not the biggest disappointment in the league, but they have been disappointing. It's really depressing. The goaltending of Carter Hart and Brian Elliott looked like it was going to be good to start the season. Since then, Hart started to struggle, then Elliott started to struggle. It's depressing to look at it. The offensive players, Claude Giroux's not producing as well as he should be. So there's a lot of concerns with Philadelphia. They did kind of trade away a couple of players at the trade deadline, but nothing great. Of course, since we last discussed them, they did waive Gostisbehere. He went unclaimed, and then he came back to Philadelphia. That boggles my mind that, the guy who was one of the top defensive players a few years ago, top offensive defensive players a couple years ago, just got waived and nobody put a claim in for him. He'll probably be left exposed for the expansion draft, if I had to guess. So, next we have New Jersey, and New Jersey's probably the worst team right now. They've been really struggling of late. They've been getting destroyed. They're not winning. They're not keeping games close. And it's not good if you're a Devils fan. Right now, the Sabres are probably doing a little better than them in the past couple of games, in the past week or two. But, I mean, the Devils, they have a chance. They need to come back. But it's a lost season. Same thing with Buffalo. Buffalo traded away Taylor Hall. And there's a lot of problems with Buffalo as well. It's a lost season for Buffalo. There's nothing more to say about them. So now we go to the West for the last division. Colorado currently leads this division with 64 points. Vegas right behind has the same amount of points with them at 64. However, they played one additional game. Minnesota has 57. Arizona hanging on to that last spot for dear life with 45. St. Louis right on their tail with 44. San Jose has 40. Los Angeles 38. And Anaheim 35 points. So Colorado, this is an offensive team. Offensive firehouse, powerhouse, however you want to put it. The offense is here. Now, Devin Dubnyk stepped up. He made his debut a couple days ago. I think it was Wednesday. And he looked very solid. Now, they need him to step up. Of course, Grubauer's on a list for a viral illness. So, they need Dubnyk to step up and continue to play well. They need the offense to continue to play well. They might be on a potential pause because they have lost Mikko Rantanen as well due to the illness. But we'll have to see. Hopefully they can return. Hopefully they can start producing. Right now, though, it's not looking good. They might start to fall a little bit due to the illnesses. Now, Vegas, right on their tail. Interesting fact, Vegas is the only team in the NHL that has not allowed 100 goals to score against them. So there's that. It shows that they're a defensive-heavy team. They play a lot of closer games. Their offense has not been doing as much as they'd hope. Specifically, that second line, Jonathan Marchessault has not looked great. But, I mean, other than that, Vegas, they need to figure out how to score with depth pieces. The goaltending's there. The defense is there. They just need to figure out how to have, their secondary line, third line scores. Otherwise, they're going to become the next Edmonton Oilers, where they have great top line, but other than that, it's questionable. The Minnesota Wild, they just continue to surprise me. They sit here in third place in the West, and they all but have a spot locked up in the playoffs. They have a 12-point lead over Arizona. So, it's crazy to me. It's really crazy to me. This team is just continuing to get a lot of production from all over the place. They don't have superstars that are stepping up and doing everything, but they have a lot of very good players that are doing just enough to keep this team competitive. Minnesota has a real chance to make a run in the playoffs this year. They have a real chance to do it. It's going to be difficult, but if they get hot at the right time, they're going to be good. Now, Arizona, with 45 points, they're hanging on to that last spot in the playoffs for dear life. Arizona, however, they don't have a lot of offensive depth. That's the problem. They don't scare me with their offense. So the defense is decent. The goaltending is okay. This team's kind of just a team of circumstance. They're here because other teams have been struggling more than them. If Arizona was in another division, they would not be in a playoff spot right now. If you put them in, say, the Central, instead of, taking out Nashville to swap the fourth place teams, Arizona would not be in the playoffs right now. They just would not be producing as well. They'd be getting their butts kicked. They'd probably be a 6th or maybe even the 7th seed. But in the West, they're doing good just because the West is so top-heavy. They have a chance to make a run for the playoffs, but they're not going to make a real run in the playoffs. St. Louis has been kind of streaking in the positive direction now. They've been doing a little better, I should say. Now, there are still holes for this team, but, this is an average team right now. They're not showing as much as they should be. Tarasenko hasn't provided the spark that they'd hoped he would. So we'll have to see with St. Louis. They should probably be able to snag that last playoff spot from Arizona. But if they keep playing mediocre, they're not going to make any moves in the playoffs. They're going to be a one and done. San Jose has been another interesting team. The Sharks they need to see some more production from players such as Timo Meier, who really has not been doing good at all this year. The rest of the team needs to figure out what it's doing, but really, they're close to the playoffs just because the West is so top-heavy. They're not a playoff team, and they know it. They definitely know it. Then you have the Los Angeles Kings. Now, the Kings have also been doing decent of late. Now, they're not great. They're not good. They're okay at best. And it's a rebuild year for them. They need to focus on next year. Lastly, Anaheim. Same exact thing as the Kings. They're okay. They're not good. Now, Jacob Silfverberg needs to step up. No doubt about that. But the Ducks in general just aren't looking good. There's not a lot of talent on that team. I'm going, oh, this guy's great. Oh, this guy's great. I won't be shocked if this is Getzlaf's, last time in the league. He very well might leave. He very well might retire. He might just leave Anaheim. We don't know. But I'd like to see him get sent off with at least something. Anaheim, though, it's not going to provide anything. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was the NHL Standing Update as of April 19th.